Living in a state of anxiety or stress, panic attacks, and freaking out isn't actually normal. And we blame it so regularly on our mind, on other people, or just external circumstances that come into our lives. And what we don't know is that it is just stored in our body. And through breath and through somatic experiences, we can change everything. And it's starting to change the world. If you guys haven't seen, the breathwork releases, somatic releases that are coming through the industry right now, like it's really taking over. And it is because it is working. And today we have one of the biggest leaders in the space, my buddy Steve Jagger, who is one of the founders of Somatic Release. And today he's going to show you guys and teach us what to do when it comes to somatic release. So welcome to the show today, guys. Jagger.
Oh, dude.
Let's go, bro. So the thing that I wanted to talk about straight away was you with the connection piece of thinking that, connection is the easiest way to heal, because if you're putting pressure on yourself to heal, then you're putting pressure on yourself, man. Tell me more about that.
I think it's important to ask, well, for me, I ask myself all the time, like, what is it that I'm really doing? Like, what is it that I'm like really trying to get to? Even when I'm working with clients, in business, in my relationship, I continue to like run that question in my own internal like GPT. I'm like, what is the prompt that I'm running right now? Is like, what am I doing? And what am I really doing? And to me, it all boils down to connection. From like a somatic perspective, healing, all it just means is integration. It's the same thing. And what is integration besides like connection? It's connecting all of the parts of yourself, the emotions that you've pushed away. Maybe it's like connecting to how powerful you actually are, which most people are so afraid of that. Maybe it's connecting to my physical body. The more connected that I feel to my physical body, my emotions, my heart, the more I can connect to other people, the better quality of life I'm living. And so I've been on this, and we can go down this, but studied multiple different healing modalities, from all the different types of body work to talk therapy and coaching, to like the somatic side of things, to the esoteric side of things. And really, I'm trying to just like strip it all of the dogma and all of the complexity. And it's like, it's actually all of it's just looking for connection to yourself so that you can connect to other people. So all of life is relationships. And I get this visual in my head that's like, you're restoring like the internet of yourself. Like we have this internet that's built in the world, but we actually have an internet going on inside of our bodies, and you're bringing back online all of the parts of yourself so that we can weave the internet of each other back together.
I love the analogies of just like the internet, because like when you think about our bodies as like a modem, right?
Exactly.
Like this electricity just like pulsing through our brains. We know like frequencies and radio waves are real, and it's like we hook ourselves up
100%
to that. Like it just makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
I am curious though, is like for either yourself specifically or just what you see is like, what are the handbrakes that get in the way that prevents people from connecting? Like, what are those symptoms?
Yeah. Oof, there's a lot of them. I mean, I typically try to look at it like, when I work with people on the head level, which is the mind, the heart level, which is kind of the emotions, and then the gut, which is like the physical aspect. So you kind of got to look at all three of those. And you can't just address the somatic piece of it, like the body and the emotions piece, because you have to address the mind. One of the biggest things is people's inner critic, like that inner voice that just continues to like beat on you. And for me, especially, dude, my inner critic is gnarly. Like when it comes to, being a high performing man and entrepreneur and like wanting to accomplish and create so much, I think in the beginning, I utilized a lot of dirty fuel, where it's like
what was dirty fuel?
The dirty fuel is that voice in my head that's like, you should be doing better. You should be here. You should be doing this. And like that can help you for a little bit, but over time it will block your ability to connect to yourself and what you actually want. There's an easy way to say this. A mentor of mine says like, a lot of the time it's the part of you that's saying should when you notice you're saying doing should, that's pressure on you. And that pressure, like, you're basically creating an internal war. Like, how easy is it to connect to yourself and what you want versus what you should do? Like, when I'm working with people, a lot of the times they're so stuck in the should, like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, that they have no idea what they actually want, because you have to clear all the layers of should, that's all of these barnacles and pressure and defense systems first. Because I ask people what they want, and they have such a hard time because they have all of these shoulds built up on what they should be doing.
I've been having this conversation a lot with myself recently and people that I've been coaching. And I've been coming to the landing on the conclusion where it's like a lot of people just don't know what they want. Yeah. And a lot of what I try to help people to do is get really clear on what it is they want. And I come to that conclusion because I was looking at people posting a lot of podcast content. And they're doing this amazing podcast content. And I was like, I hate you. Like, I hate you. Why are you doing like all this awesome podcast stuff? And then I just had to reflect. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling this jealousy. I'm feeling pressure. I'm feeling all this because that's what I want to be doing. And then the second that I started doing podcasts, it just faded away. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, that's one aspect inside the head. I mean, a lot of the times people have a hard time seeing clearly, like, mentally, because they're so backed up from emotional, like, undigested emotions. Like, I look at, we're an electrical body, right? You can talk energy work and all the woo-woo stuff, but, like, you are an electrical body. Your nervous system is an antenna, and the state of your antenna is going to be what your mind is picking up on. So, like, if you're in a state of fear and contraction, or you have all this, like, should energy that's pushed on yourself, like, you are going to be contracted, and you're going to be picking up on contracted ideas. Yeah. Like, all of the institutions in power understood this. If I can keep you in a state of fear, guilt, shame, like, you're not going to be able to think clearly. Like, if someone just, broke your heart, shattered your heart, you're not thinking clearly because you're feeling so much. And I work in the realms of emotional release a lot, like within breath work and body work. And it's never, people see a lot of the videos and stuff, and they, like, see people with these emotional release. It's never about the emotional release, but it's about the space that's created from that. So you can actually see clearly. We're so disconnected from our emotional spectrum that we have such a hard time making clear decisions because we have all of these undigested emotions that are just stagnant there. And so I look at it as a digestion process. We live in a world now where we're absorbing more information than our parents, our grandparents. Like, we're absorbing so much information in a day that our grandparents probably took in their whole lifetime. And it's just getting more and more exponential.
Dude, there was a study done, and it's in the book, The Biology of Transcendence. Yeah. And it was these German researchers. And this was just their conclusion. There's, like, no evidence that it was real, but this is just what the idea that they come up with in a study. And there was a lot of evidence to back it up, but also there wasn't, like, any anecdotal evidence. But I still thought the concept blew my brain. And it was like, I think it's like 60 years from now, from, like, today, because they did it and it was like, 110 years from now, people will be consuming so much information that if someone in 1940 was to do what someone in 2040, the information that they would have to process, their brains would actually shut down and die. And they were doing, like, all these researches for that, like, people are going to have so much emotional stimulus that it's done. And then they talked about the difference between the stimulus and how it's, like, impacting us. And it's just...
Dude, people are obese. Yeah. Not just physically, but mentally. Like, if you had a vision that you could see people and all of the undigested information that they're walking around with, like, no wonder people can't think clearly and they have anxiety and depression. And, like, people are emotionally, informationally, experientially obese. They're not actually digesting their experience. And so, like, and that digestion process is absorbing, and not just absorbing, but it's, like, assimilating and then excreting a lot of the shit that you don't need, right? Like, so
you have no idea how much that hit me. So I don't talk about books. I talk about books every now and then, but there's another book that I read called The Origin History of Consciousness, Eric Neumann, and he uses that digestion process for the psyche. Like he uses that as a like an analogy. And he goes, I'm deep into it, and it blew my brain. And you just saying that right now, I just have all these clicks. I was like, whoa, that makes so much sense. Has that impacted you in business at all? Like when was the any struggles that you had that were just like, oh shit, this is what I need to do because I've been doing this, but I've actually had to focus on digesting. Like, have you got any examples?
Dude, absolutely. So, my background, I originally went to school for addiction psychology because my parents were both meth addicts. Addiction.
Oh, addiction. Okay.
Addiction psychology. Yeah. My parents were addicts, and I'm an only child, and so like I grew up always playing sports and being super physical, and like I didn't really realize why that was until later on. It was because like I wanted to be in my body. I wanted to not think about what's going on at home, not think about what happened in the past or in the future. Like playing sports, basketball, skateboarding, baseball, all of the different things kept me in my body. And then so I originally studied addiction psychology probably because I wanted to help my parents.
Yeah.
And then I went down that route, and it was like, as soon as we started getting into the labeling of people with the DSM-4 at the time, like this is your diagnosis, and then these are the prescriptions that we give you based on that.
Did sex have anything to do with that as well, just by the way?
Like, what do you mean? Like addiction to sex?
Yeah, for you wanting to need to get into your body, was there anything sex-wise that showed up? Just out of curiosity?
Absolutely. I think I've always been a very sexual human, and that's been something that's been an addiction for me, for sure, which I would be super interested to get into that. But so I switched from addiction psychology. I swung the pendulum to the other side and wanted to study physical therapy. So I went from the mind route to the body route. And so I started studying physical therapy, anatomy, kinesiology, injury rehabilitation, all of that stuff. And it really felt empty to me as well. So I ended up dropping out of both and found this holistic based school that taught different forms of body work, from cranial sacral therapy to neuromuscular therapy to like, during that time, I was kind of going through a spiritual awakening within myself. I was having like wild lucid dreams because I was in high school. I was a heavy cannabis user, and I was probably, self-medicating based on like my parental upbringing. And
definitely self-medicating.
I said 100%. Yeah. So I stopped. And when you stop smoking, you get what's called REM reuptake. And so you have wild, crazy dreams. And I started having these lucid dreams, and I started doing some research. What is this? And it took me down a realm of lucid dreaming and astral projection and your energy body and all of these different things that I was like, holy shit. Okay. And so I found a school that taught a lot of like energy work in the form of polarity therapy and cranial sacral therapy. And I walked in and I was like, oh my God, this is the place. So I ended up studying that for 2 to 3 years, became a body worker. Then eventually I became an instructor there because like my teachers loved me. I was so fascinated by it. They wanted me to be an assistant teacher. And then I eventually became an instructor there. So I spent about 5 or 6 years like deeply immersed in that world and learning as much as I could. I was such a seeker. And by the end of it, I got pretty burnt out just from working with people one-to-one so much. And I needed a break because I had just absorbed so much information and so many different modalities and ways of working with people. I took 2 years and I lived in Sedona, which is kind of like a spiritual mecca, if you will. And I didn't listen to any podcasts, read any books. I worked with clients, but I basically spent all my time hiking and just being outside and just taking space. And that allowed me to really take those 5 or 6 years, like what were the things that I found valuable and applicable and that I was using with people? What were the things that were like dogmatic and a little too much? Like I've always wanted to distill it and make it, digestible for the general population. So I took those 2 years, and I truly believe that the business that I have now was because I took those 2 years of space and just like distilled. It's like the process of alchemy where you take all this stuff and you distill it down to like, what's its purest essence? What are you actually trying to do with it? So it gave me a lot of the frameworks that I use in somatic breathwork that we still use now.
Well,
Yeah.
It's crazy, bro.
It's been a journey.
Yeah, that is like that is wild. I really relate to you in regards to when you become obsessed with something. Can you just want to grow and grow and grow and grow? But I'm interested around the burnout piece. Like when did you realize when you were like in business, when you were like actually doing your business, of like moments where you've had to use your tools yourself, then had the reflection of being like, oh, I got to use this.
Oh man, it's I don't think that's that ever ends. Like, there's been points where like I've gotten better at knowing when the burnout is coming and being able to like my awareness of self and my body and my energy levels has gotten better as time has gone on. I used to push through so much more. And like, to be honest with you, we went viral in 2022 or like the end of 2021.
Just breathwork content?
Emotional release content, breathwork content.
Yeah. What kind of emotional release? Is anger, grief, shame?
It's fascinating. I mean, when we first started, I was putting out a lot of content and me teaching a lot of the different frameworks and dynamics that we use. And I hired a social media woman and she was like, you need to put out some of this content of what like people are going through in this, like because people go through a multitude of different emotional releases. I'm never focused on like, let's just work with anger. Let's just work with sadness or grief. Cause it's based on what's organically coming up for the person. But we put out some videos of, me working with a woman. There was consent, of course. And her having an emotional release and me being there with her in a very, responsible way. And overnight, it just started going viral. And
because it's intimate as well.
It was intimate.
People don't see a lot of intimacy like that.
And what the fascinating thing was that we got thousands of messages like within the next week. And most of those messages were actually not in English. Which blew my mind for a second. It made me realize the global aspect of this, because I'm posting videos of me teaching, but not everybody speaks English. Not everybody knows what I'm saying. Everyone speaks the language of emotions. Everyone speaks the language of the nervous system. A lot of people, we were transcribing these messages and they're like, I don't know what's going on here, but I see a human feeling. And I want to feel.
Yeah. Especially in the information age, it's like one thing that we're lacking, I think we're drained of, is like emotions.
Emotional expression. We live in a very numb world. And for me, I look at feeling, whether it's sensation in your body or emotions, whatever it is, feeling is equated to your aliveness. If you're not feeling, what's the opposite of that? It's numbness. And I've heard, Peter Levine, who's kind of the father of somatics, like he says, although humans don't really die necessarily from trauma, it severely diminishes their life. And most people, like, we call that a living death. It's a death with your eyes open disease. We all have. I've been there where I'm walking around and my heart's beating and I'm breathing but like, I'm not feeling anything.
It makes so much sense. It's like disassociation.
Yeah.
One of my friends is like a senior lawyer, like a real close, and he'd been like high up, knows a lot of lawyers. He's studying this like one law degree at the moment. They only give it to like 50 people in Australia per year. It's wild. But he said to me, there was like, if someone goes through really severe trauma, especially as a child, and their nervous system is like wild for that trauma, and he's like, if it was like an abuser or violence, something that they experienced, which is really bad. Because like the government basically signed them off as just like, give them a lot of money because they're not going to have much of a future. Like this person.
That's in Australia?
Like, wrecked. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If they sue someone or they figured something out or whatever it is, there's an abuser, that the government just like, have a lot of money because like, there's not much you're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
That's like the attitude that the lawyers have for people who have gone through like crazy amounts of trauma. And one part of me like also like blew my brain. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And the other part of me was just like realized like, oh, it makes sense. Like if you've got massive amount of trauma, or if you haven't worked on your stuff, like you're going to be disassociated. And then the other part of me got like a bit angry hearing that was happening.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, but we can fix this. You know what I mean? Like a lot of this stuff can be healed. And yeah, sometimes like for different people, it's like, there's a lot of work you got to do, but if you're willing to do it and face the fear that you've been challenged to face. Like,
and so let's just throw money at it. You know, that's like a absent father type energy. Like, let's just like throw money at it.
The absent
like,
father.
oh, sorry, kid. Like, I got to work over here. I got to do stuff. Like, I know you're hurting, but I'll just give you some money. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But I mean, it's interesting because like trauma, there's so much talk about it. Trauma is not the thing that's like happening to you. It's what's happening inside of your body. And it's different. We all like, it could be something that's massively intense for me, but maybe you don't respond to it. It's subjective. Like it could be a little thing that I went through. Like someone just told me to like shut up when I was singing. And then my voice now has been like constricted for the rest of my life. And it's the thing about trauma too, is it's always an intelligent response. Like it's designed to protect you. But if we don't know how to shut it off, then it becomes a thing that blocks us. It's like the way that we protect ourselves from feeling pain can help us in the moment, but over time, it becomes the thing that blocks us from our ability to feel ourselves. What you call that, like adaptive at one point, and then what's adaptive becomes maladaptive.
Yeah. So what things for you have prevented you from like where you've wanted to succeed in business, or you've wanted to like, you know, have something happen in your relationship where you've had a strong intention, but then this has like got in the way?
Yeah. So growing up in a pretty dysregulated household, like what
is your parents with meth addicts, right? Both of them?
Yeah. Both of them, alcohol, like all the different types of drugs. And then they eventually went to rehab and then got clean from that and then switched to prescription medications, which were still causing the same stuff over and over again. So, you know, growing up in a dysregulated household, and as a child, you're so sensitive. Like we're not designed to regulate ourselves as a child. We are co-regulating animals, right? When we come out of the womb, we actually need our mom. Like our parents are God, and we're plugged into them. So what's happening in their nervous system is also happening in ours until we go through the individuation process of like, cool, I start to crawl and then I move a little bit further and then I come back and then I learn how to walk and then I can get a little bit further. Then eventually I get a car and then I can go further. And then eventually I move out, and by that time, hopefully our parents have taught us how to self-regulate ourselves. But, you know, growing up in a pretty chaotic household, like my defense system was, I had kind of two ways of protecting myself, which one was I became super sensitive and hypervigilant, where I would just pick up on everything. Like what? Like I would look at their faces to tell, it's like, cool, are they on something right now? Are they about to have an argument? Like I just became so sensitive and wanted to, almost like a people pleasing type energy. Like I wanted to, they call it a fawn response, where it's like I wanted to morph myself into whatever I felt like they needed. Right. So then I would just completely collapse into, you know, whatever their dysregulation was. And then I would do that. I would try to help fix. I remember going to my mom, like, what can I do to help you? And then eventually I would get so either burnt out or just lose myself in it that I would swing the pendulum to the other side and just throw up this massive wall and just leave and go stay at my friend's house for multiple days. And that same pattern I've watched in every romantic relationship that I've had. I've watched in my business relationship, because I have a co-founder and I have we built this together with, you know, a multitude of people, close friends of mine. And I've watched where I'm fully in it and I'm trying to fix everything. And I'm like, just lose myself in it. Or in relationships, I've just given everything and lost my sense of self. And then at some point I'm like, holy fuck, this is too much. And then I swing the pendulum and then I completely disconnect and throw up this massive avoidant wall within myself. And so it's,
Disorganized attachment.
yeah, I guess. I don't know exactly sometimes it's anxious and sometimes it's avoidant. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, it's insane. I went to a workshop the other week, and I think it was on disorganized. It was on like anxious and avoidant attachment at Kuya,
Yeah.
and there was a lady facilitating it. And she just had a terminology. She was like, "There's one in there which you kind of do,
yeah.
but you do both at the same time."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is, I didn't realize that I'd been in that before as well. Just like that chaotic energy of like come in, and also I relate to you so much because it's like for me, I didn't realize it was like my last relationship is like I confirmed my identity from being the guy that could heal you because I'm good at that. But then I just completely avoid myself, and then like struggles happen in business. I'm like, oh, I haven't got the energy for that. I can't bother. We have another fight, and then I'll be like, oh, I need to like avoid this.
Yeah, man.
I'm like, why am I so tired? I eat so well, I train so well, I do everything else. So what the fuck's going on?
Yeah. Shoot, I resonate with that. I mean, it's really easy to get your sense of like it's a fake vulnerability when you're working on everyone else's stuff, because you get that felt sense of like, oh my God, we're going to the depths together, and like, but are you actually the one that's being vulnerable in a way? Are you actually? It's a tricky thing that I watch a lot of coaches and practitioners go through, where you can get that felt sense of like you're having a deep connection with people, but it's empty and it's not a good. It's you have to get that elsewhere outside of that dynamic. And yeah, I've gone through that a multitude of times. Like for me, there was a big shift maybe like a year and a half ago of that, like to be on a path of supporting other humans or other people in any sort of way. Like the number one thing that you have to dedicate to is your own self-awareness, because none of us help or fix another person. Like we don't heal another person. This goes back to the beginning where a lot of us have that inner fixer inside of ourselves where we're saying like, if I'm so focused on my own healing, I'm creating the opposing force that says something is wrong with me and that I'm broken. Like we live in a duality. You can't, it's very subtle and it's very sneaky, but if you're like pressuring yourself to go on this healing journey, probably you're relating to yourself in a place that something's broken and you need to fix it. Where it's like no one's broken. Most time there's something just stuck that needs to move. And so even when I'm working with my clients, like people can tell me all of the heavy stuff that's going on. I'm not necessarily ever relating to them in a way like I'm going to fix your stuff. Because one, that's a ton of pressure on my shoulders because now I'm responsible for the fixing. And I did that for a long time, burnt myself out that way. And then two, you're now looking at this person and sending them the energy of that they're broken and there's something wrong with them, where there's more intelligence in their body than your mind could ever even fathom. Like they're digesting their food, they're beating their heart, their hair is growing. Like our minds can't even fathom the process of that. So how am I to know what's going to heal this person? I just want to create a space where I can co-regulate with them and really just point out the intelligence, like of what's going on. That's been like and there's other techniques and stuff like that, but being in a way where I'm honoring, how much can I honor the innate intelligence of what's going on in your system and everything that you've gone through in your life and how it shaped you and molded you. And like, how can I help you see how intelligent that was? Because most of the time when we see how much it helped us, that's usually the ticket to take the pressure off of ourselves. And then a lot of the times it unfolds from there.
Yeah, I so get that with that stuck feeling. What do people do if they've got like a situation? I'd like to hear how you relate to this when they are facing off with like a love or like a sex addiction, but they're also in denial and they don't know what happens. So I was talking about this with someone last night. I was on a date last night and we were talking about it. And I remember I was just like, what blew my brain was like all the girls talking about like there's girls that do OnlyFans and how much money that they make via OnlyFans. They'll make a lot of money. But then I flipped that around and I was like, well, it's not so much the money that they're making, but who's spending the money on OnlyFans. Because like for me, it was like a part of my journey. I talk about this a lot in my audience. Like I quit masturbating like 5-6 years ago, something like that. I just quit it.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I'm just never going to do this again for the foreseeable future. Like, no way.
How's that been for you?
Fantastic, bro.
Dude, yeah. Real liveness starts to come back.
Bro, but then it's just like for me, it was like, well, also, I'm like, I want to deal with the frustration of, how am I going to ejaculate?
Yeah.
Sex. All right. But then when you haven't ejaculated for like 2-3 months, you're like, I'm sensitive. I don't want to have sex with just anyone.
Dude, 100%.
Like, there's no way. So I'm like, I want to put myself in that position so that I have the energy to find a wife. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, I've just had like the best relationships, the best dates, and the best experiences. And I was like, well, I'm so happy I did that. But I was still like, fuck, man, there's like people are spending money. Like the men are. I'm like, the OnlyFans, you know, the whole thing, and just porn is just fueling men's insecurity and toxicity. I'm like, it's gotta go. Like you're fueling men's bad mental health in men. Like it's not good. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's like, well, like even when, because I watched a lot of porn when I was in my early 20s and I was like heavily addicted, but I didn't realize I was even addicted. But then for me, it translated into, I would get so attached to women. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, I'm like craving intimacy. I didn't realize that there's love and sex addiction. So I just love to hear like your take.
That's a big topic. And I've experienced that as well too. Like there's been multiple relationships that I've been in that I'm like, because I'm sensitive as well. And I've never been a person that I want to go hook up with a bunch of people, but I have a high sex drive as well. And yeah, there's been multiple relationships where I'm like, I think I was actually in this relationship because I just wanted sex. And was
it hard to admit to yourself?
So hard to admit to myself. Like when I took that piece out.
Did you use breath to get rid of it? Like to take the piece out?
I use the breath to figure out which emotions I was avoiding feeling, because that's the thing that's the underlying force. Like whatever addiction it is, you know, Gabor says the opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of addiction is connection. It's not sobriety, because whatever the addiction, it's giving you something. And it's helping in some sort of way. It's helping you to connect or disconnect from something. So what is it like? What is it that you're trying to connect to, or what is it that you're running away from? And most of the time it's for me, it was emotions that I didn't want to let myself feel.
Like what emotions? I'm like dying. I'm like,
yeah. The full spectrum of them, you know, there's a lot of them. There was a lot of, I think first it would go into like deep sadness of like wanting to have connection with my mother. I remember going into her room multiple times and wondering like, and I don't know exactly what's going on because I'm a child, but like, hey, why can't you get out of bed? Like, hey, come to my sports games. Hey, meet my friends. Hey, come out and play with me. So there was a deep sadness there. And beyond that, it's like grief. Like grief, I think grief is fascinating, man. That's probably the emotion I've avoided the most. And also like there's anger underneath that sadness because, well, anger actually probably on the top because I was angry. Like, why didn't you guys give me a life that I wanted, right? And then underneath it was like sadness because I just wanted love. But underneath that was the grief of like not really experiencing a normal childhood, or not really the letting go of multiple chapters of my life. I mean, even in grief is something that I'm continuing to go deeper into, and I have a hard time accessing it. Like I literally have to sit my ass down and use what's been an entry point for me is like nostalgia. Nostalgia, I think, is a great entry point into grief. And grief allows us to move forward into the future like clean. I was hopping from relationship to relationship and never grieving not just the relationship with the person that I was in the relationship, the story that both of us were painting together of how life was going to be when we were together. I had to grieve, like, well, I realized how much I wasn't grieving that. And so if I'm not feeling that, then I need something to numb myself from feeling that. And a little side note that might help people understand this deeper is that if you are numbing yourself, which we all are, in a multitude of ways, whether it's porn, sex, whether it's
Work.
100% entrepreneurial grind, the pressure of that,
Online scrolling is
scrolling,
oh my goodness, it's hard.
and all the other ones like, alcohol, food. Numbness is actually, it's not passive. Numbness actually requires a tremendous amount of energy from yourself. That's why we utilize all these different things. That's why I need porn or I need these other things, because it's hard for me to numb, because feeling and sensing is how I was born into the world. That's our default state. Our default state, a child, they come out of the womb, something happens to them, they're feeling fucking everything. That's your default state. And so numbness, when I'm pushing something down, that's the thing that requires the most energy.
It makes so much sense.
So that's why you get so tired from numbing, because feeling and sensing is your default state. They call this, from a body perspective, it's called parasitic tension. Like you work out and obviously take care of your body, but like from a body work perspective, like so many people have tension in their neck and shoulders, or tension in places that there shouldn't necessarily be a bunch of tension. But it takes energy from your nervous system to contract a muscle, right? It's not like you're contracting your bicep. It's a neuromuscular thing that requires the electricity. So it takes energy from your system to keep those muscles contracted, where that energy could go to other things, like repairing on a cellular level, like digesting your food, which is the most energy intensive thing in your body. The same thing happens on an emotional level, is when I have a bunch of emotional backlog that I haven't let myself feel, it's taking more energy for me to continue to numb it and push it down. That's why I'm looking for external things to help me in the process of numbing it, because it requires so much energy.
Newsflash, you're supposed to feel overwhelmed.
You are, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, like all of the emotions felt all the way through, at the end of it is joy and pleasure.
Yeah. I've experienced that at the end of, because I do like men's work retreats.
Yeah.
And throughout that retreat, so it's funny to say that we do head, heart, gut as well. It's kind of like we facilitate each day. So there's like a head, there's a heart, there's a gut that goes through each experience. And we also play through the realms of like, okay, you can experience like a negative emotion, and then you're going to experience a really positive emotion. And we go negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, to like really expand someone's capacity to feel. And by the end of the weekend, when like I'm looking at people in their eyes and their face, there is like this fucking energy of intimacy, man, that like I'm like, oh, this is such a high. Like I'm legitimately high on intimacy with the bros that I've been able to connect with.
Why do you think, like, what do you think creates that?
I think it is the polarity of the emotion that they're feeling, because it's kind of like, and for example, I think about it as like two springs, right? And they've kind of come down like two springs, if you think of just in a chamber, and they come down and they've like smacked each other. And if you think like if the springs are touching each other, that is numbness. And then what happens is with each exercise, we smack one spring back up and we smack another spring down, smack another spring back up, smack them down. And then we just open the channel, and then just what gets filled in with that is the emotions that they're supposed to feel. But also it's the same way, if you haven't felt any of those emotions in a long time, it's a new emotional experience. It is like, what am I feeling right now? I remember this one guy, it was after a rage release. He was just sitting down against his wall like this, right? His face was sagging, his hands were on his knees, his whole body was slumped over, and he was just kind of shaking his head, just like with his eyes kind of open. And he just said, we just talked to him like, hey man, what's coming up for you? And everyone was saying, he's like, I've never felt an emotion until now. I'm just witnessing my body feeling emotions. But what I also know is that, like, for me is like, it's like, because you run, you run all the retreats, right? You've run so many retreats and done so many experiences with people. And I'd like to know this for you as well. For me, it was like the more that I do retreats, it's like that I don't get the same high out of them. It's like, oh, I'm becoming a better leader, but it's not as like I have this new experience of an emotion. It was like the very first 2 retreats that we did. I remember I was high. And the week after, I was like, I was like falling asleep. Like I was so tired. And now when we run them, like I'm good to go in like a day or 2, but I don't get the intensity of the high of feeling a new emotion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I resonate, and I feel the same. I want to go back for just a second because that intimacy piece I think is so important. Like I asked you, like what creates that? And for me, I've noticed in these retreats and in trainings and whatnot, the practitioner training specifically, when people go through emotional release, and it's not just them by themselves, it's that they're in the presence of somebody else. What happens is it's vulnerability, right? Vulnerability is I'm showing you all of the parts of myself. And what do they say is like the foundation of relationship or intimacy more than anything?
Yeah, vulnerability.
Vulnerability, trust.
Yeah.
What creates trust?
Safety.
But how do I create the safety for you is that when I show you all of the parts of myself, when I show you that I'm in the deepest of my sadness and I show you
to shoot you down.
I'm giving you the power. Yeah, I'm vulnerable and but I'm showing you all of me. But then in your nervous system, you recognize that I'm not holding anything back from you. So your system can actually start to feel more safe because it's not like you can always feel when you're in a relationship and there's a bunch of shit that's over here that they're like holding from telling you.
Oh yeah, it's the worst.
It's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody go through the full spectrum of their emotions, you just witnessed all of them.
Yeah. It's intense to be in a relationship with someone like that. Like I remember at the start, like with my ex, when we were first in a relationship, I was just fresh out of doing a whole bunch of work.
Yeah.
She's like 7 years younger than me, hasn't really been induced to doing any of the work before. And I was just like, here, like, here's my whole heart and everything on the table. And she was like, ah, like wanted to like run away. She's like, this is really intimidating. You know?
Yeah. And especially as a man too, because there's a lot there. But to answer your question that you just asked me, why does it hit you hard in the beginning of doing this work and maybe later on it's not so much? You know, a lot of the times when we first get into this, there is such a plug that's been there that we have so much that's built up that like that amount of catharsis and that amount of release is just so powerful. But at some point, you don't necessarily need those like powerful cathartic releases anymore. And maybe if you're going through something specific, then it can be very helpful. But after time, like what we call that is a discharge or an expression, right? And I've talked about that pressure, for example, the should energy, where you are putting pressure on your ability to the pressure or to express. And everyone, all of life, I would say, is looking for its own unique expression, right? We're all, if you look at plants, animals, everything out there is just expressing themselves and it has its own unique expression. And so when someone's been so suppressed or repressed for a long time and it's so bottled up that the expression that comes out in the beginning is a lot of the stuff that's bogged down, a lot of the emotional, muddy stuff first. And then once you move through a lot of those layers, unless you're going through something really intense right now, then it becomes like, how do I turn my expression into an art form? Like some of the most stressed out people that I know have created the best music, the most incredible art, the best businesses. And a lot of the times it takes working through those emotional stuff first, but then it's about how do I channel this into an art form, right? And there's I see a lot of energy in like that realm of emotional release and somatics and men's work, and where it's all about the release. And that's one part of it, but it's about the space that's created from that release to bring in, how do you want to feel? How do you want to show up? What do you want to embody? And like, how often can we stay in that place of firing and wiring the elevated emotions back into us? And part of that is like learning how to contain ourselves. So
what do you mean by contain?
Yeah, so we're talking about the emotional release, which is the expression, which is so helpful for all of us, especially the people that have been so suppressed and haven't let themselves feel an emotion for so long. And so there's suppression, which is like, I'm just going to continue to numb and hold all of this stuff in. But there's also containment. Containment is, in my opinion, like how someone becomes an adult. You look at a child who they're so in touch with their innate intelligence in their body, something, happens to them, they throw a temper tantrum, they express it, they know how to move it through their body. But they know that, as a parent, your job is to teach them, well, you can't just do this in the grocery store, or you can't do this at school, but let's show you at home, like, here's the place. Well, let's create a space, a time, a practice of moving this through my body, and it's okay to let yourself feel emotions in this sort of way. Containment is like the barriers or the walls that you create to actually channel that expression. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. So what does containment look like then in the real world? When like if you're like, oh, that guy's like
containment, I'll give you an example that like I messed this up a lot in my last relationship. She would be expressing something that is wrong or something that's bothering her or coming to me with an emotion, and she would be expressing. And then so I would then express what I'm feeling. And that would cause even more issues. So then we'd both be expressing, and then it would just cause all this
one fire.
Yeah, it would just it would fire versus like, do I have the ability to actually contain what I'm expressing right now? Can I hold it in a way where it's not suppressing it, where I'm not numbing out to it, but can I hold it within me to show up and create the space for her to express right now and feel seen and heard in that, knowing that I'll have a time and a place in my therapy or in my, in a different container to be able to express that, right? It's learning like when and where, and being in touch with your body, knowing that, okay, I actually do need an anger release right now, or I do need to sit my ass down and feel some grief. It's kind of like that's the next form of like starting to learn emotional intelligence, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the real basic way of saying that is learning to shut up and then delaying the process of actually processing it.
Yeah. Knowing that like you are resourced enough that you're not going to go to the tools that are helping you numb it, but you are resourced enough that like I have the tools and techniques and know at a certain time that I'm feeling this and it's okay for me to feel this. Like I don't have to just like emotional vomit on everyone around me, right?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of where I'm seeing some of that in this sort of healing community where it's like, let's just have emotional release and express all over each other. It's like, no, I might be feeling really sad right now, and I might need to hold it for a moment, knowing that I have a place and a space and I have the tools and techniques to be able to work through it later on.
That's why you said before, and why community and connection is just so important.
It's so important.
I had one mentor, it was one of the first retreats that I went to. I was asking a question around like leadership and leading, like my team and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I just have this need where I'm always just like, I can't remember what the thing was. But I remember just saying, like, how do I get over that? And he's like, you just shut up. He just said, shut up. And I was okay, I could like take this on board. And like literally I'm so grateful for how he said it, because he came across like, you shut up, you talk too much. And then like, so that's been like stuck in my head through a lot of moments where I've had leadership come up.
Yeah.
And I've just learned to shut up and observe while I'm in there. And I've been like, I wish someone told me this when I was young. Like, this is such a superpower of a skill of just like waiting, witnessing, actually thinking, and not just letting what I feel need to surface out.
Yeah.
Like
it's like that Viktor Frankl quote. There's a space between the stimulus and the response.
Oh yeah.
And in that space is like that's where the power lies, right? It's
ability to choose.
The ability to choose, right? Choice is our human superpower. And I like I mean, that's why we regulate our nervous system or heal our trauma anyways, or like do all of this work to create more space between stimulus and response. Because if not, then I'm just reactive. Like if somebody's getting triggered, it's because something that's happening is activating this part of me that has a defense mechanism around it. And so if I'm reactive all the time, I actually don't have choice in my life. I don't have free will anymore. Like my life is starting to be played out for me. And a lot of the time it's based off the wounding that I have inside of me. And so why do this work to begin with? It's to create more spaciousness. And we talked about like most of us are informationally and emotionally obese. We have no space. We have no space. Think about in conversations, most of us are thinking about the next thing that I'm going to say versus actually having the space and the capacity to listen to what you're saying. Do I actually have enough inner spaciousness to receive what you're saying, digest it in that moment, and actually say the thing that needs to be said?
And then respond.
And then respond, right?
In a way that's authentic.
In a way that's authentic,
Yeah.
in a way that's attuned. I'd be curious, someone asked me this the other day, would you be open to, like, what's your definition of leadership?
Oh, nice.
Like, what's the definition of it for you?
I have a definition.
You do?
For
Okay,
leadership.
cool.
Yeah.
I don't yet, but I'm like,
This is
really
because
sitting with.
Well, I teach a lot of masculine leadership,
Mm.
right? So in us, this is like men's work stuff. So we teach a lot of masculine leadership, and we learn a lot of social dynamics. We do a lot of like dating stuff. We do business stuff, health, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. And for me, it's just one word: facilitation.
Mm.
I like this because where it comes from is like, have you ever read Greek myth?
Some.
So in Greek myth, I can't remember which book it was I was reading it in, but they're like, there's two key sins in Greek myth. One is murder, right?
Mm.
Murdering someone's the worst. The second big sin is being a shit host,
Wow.
which is why in all mythology and stories and fantasies, there's all these rules. If you go to the land of Faerie or you go to like a vampire's place, whatever it is, you'll still go to someone's house, they'll offer you drink or food and you have to say yes. And you see that happen in movies. You will start to see it now. And they play this game of host and guest, right?
Yeah.
So in Greek myths, it's like if you're a bad host, you like it's a sin, right? But the worst thing to do is be a host and then murder someone in your house, which is why the ultimate thing of like you go to a vampire's house and they'll host you, they'll give you food, they'll wine you, and then when you least expect it, they'll kill you and suck all your blood out, right? And turn you into a vampire as well. That's why that story's played out everywhere.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, as a leader, because there's multiple different ways to facilitate. It's like you're just creating an experience where you're the host.
Mm.
And I remember I was at doing a bunch of leadership training and stuff as well. I was at an event, and we had to like break off into like a break-off room, and there's like 500 people at this event. So we had like 30 people in a team, and we had to like come up with an idea and pitch it. And I remember I was like, I want to win because I'm competitive, but I had like energy. Usually I like being at the front, being like, because like we do retreats and stuff. So I'm out there like, everyone do this, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I can't be bothered doing anything. So I remember I just asked questions. I made us all huddle in a circle. I was like, everyone huddle in a circle, because people get shy. They don't want to like tell people what to do, especially in Australia. So everyone get in a circle. Or you're not allowed to stand out. Like get in again. Who's got an idea? And then someone would ask an idea. And I'm like, okay, what are your thoughts? And blah, blah, blah. Then everyone would come up to me. Oh, Corey, do you want to speak and pitch? I'm like, absolutely not. It was this guy's idea. Let's get him to pitch. And I remember like just being in the situation, and I was like, oh, this is like good leadership here. I'm just facilitating this.
Yeah.
But it also happens when I have people come to a barbecue. And what I knew, because I used to have big parties at my house in my early 20s, if I want 100 people to come to my house, I got to message everyone. I got to see them a couple of weeks beforehand. We got to talk. I got to be in connection. There has to be like, I have to actually like have a good setup at my house. We had like 4 beer pong tables. We'd have like 5 beer bongs. We like had all this stuff. We made sure I had like DJ speakers at the event. Right people come. I told people to like, wear something or whatever it is. It's like you got to know these little details, but it creates a great experience. So even when I'd have a barbecue at like a house or something, I was like, oh, this is happening. But then it's the same thing when it's like you go out on a date or take your partner out on a date. It's like, because the women always go, oh, I want a guy that like picks the place and blah, 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 blah. If you know what you want in terms of leadership, you're like, all right, I got to know what I want her to wear. What am I feeling her vibing? Like, what would I like her to look like? What is it that, where like somewhere that could be good for both of us to eat? Or is it like, okay, I'm going to choosing for her, or am I choosing for me this time? Maybe I want this. Maybe I'm going to choose something to like please her, or maybe I'm going to please myself. I was like, what time's that going to be? Blah, blah, blah. It's just facilitation, right? You're just facilitating an experience.
Dude, yeah.
So that's my definition, bro.
Dude, I love that. And like, I love the idea of hosting too, because I teach hosting is not just, yeah, everything that you just spoke to, like paying attention to all the little subtle details as well. But hosting also happens like, can I host your emotional experience inside of myself?
Oh, I was actually going to ask you a question on
Can I
this.
host?
I go,
Can I be enough of a leader that where I can, for my team, can I allow them to all come to me? And do I have enough spaciousness and can I listen and host all of the stuff that they're going through inside of myself? We teach that as like attunement. It's the moment to moment relating, and it's happening on a nervous system level. Like you have an electrical bubble around you. I have an electrical bubble around me. This happens if you're on a date as well too. Like when my electrical bubble is communicating with yours, they call it chemistry, but it happens on an electrical level first. It's like my bubble's communicating with your bubble, and then it's releasing different things inside of me that we call chemistry, right?
yeah, it's
But
cold.
but within that is like a woman and your team, people can feel if you're actually able to host them within inside of yourself. Do you have enough sturdiness foundation within yourself that you can host them and not lose yourself in that?
That's where turn on happens. Men figure out, oh, why can't I turn on my partner? Why doesn't she want to have sex with me? It's like, bro, she hosting herself out there. You ain't hosting shit.
Yeah,
Dude, that makes so much sense. I actually had one point that I wanted to speak to in regards to for this, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and it's something that's happened to me, was like how people's nervous systems regulate to each other. Like literally, if it's like a friend, business partner, or something else.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say your nervous system tunes to someone who's suffered a shitload of trauma. It's like you then go through secondary trauma. You have a secondary response. And I feel like a lot of people in the world will think like, oh, this is my trauma and there's this thing. And I'm like, that's why it's so important to be around people. What they say, like, you become the 5 people you're around. I'm like,
100%.
but it's science.
Yeah.
Because your nervous system is regulating to theirs.
Yeah.
Like you're actually going through limbic resonance. Like,
yeah.
Like, oh my God.
They call it mirror neurons, or it's co-regulation, but the same thing, you can co-dysregulate too.
Yeah.
Another definition and like trait that I think makes a good leader is being able to hold a certain state for other people to entrain to you. Meaning that like if you got someone that you're around that's really dysregulated, you're not going to co-dysregulate with them. You're going to maintain your own, like you can host them, you can feel with them, but you're not going to lose yourself in that. And it's tough for a lot of people. I mean, the world out there, like most people are finding connection through co-dysregulation.
It's crazy.
Oh, did you see what happened on the news? Oh yeah, I saw what happened on the news. Oh my God, that's so terrible. Oh yeah, it's terrible. The world is a terrible place, right? So they're connecting over their stressors versus like connecting and helping each other feel safer and move into a more of a relaxed, regulated state. But it requires one person at least to maintain what I call like mountain energy.
Yeah, that's what people say, like, oh, that guy's solid. It's like,
that guy's
he ain't solid. He's just not allowing other people to dysregulate him.
He's solid. He's also open, porous, like, because you could be solid and have walls built up all around you. But you could be that, like, what I call it mountain energy, because it's like a mountain doesn't give a shit if it's rain or if it's wind, hail, snow, fire. It's fucking unmovable.
It's a mountain.
It's a mountain. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be there. You got your woman who's going through a complete, just emotional fit or whatever. Like, can you still hold the presence there, stay open, but also not lose yourself in it and not become reactive?
That's amazing. Yeah, I realized recently that I had a lot of secondary, like, trauma in, like, my body. Like from someone else. And I was like, okay, intellectually, I feel like I've processed it. Yeah. Like, emotionally, I feel like a lot of that's been cleared. But I'm like, I still know that it's in my body.
Yeah.
How do I get rid of that?
Yeah, dude. You can talk about it as much as you want. That still doesn't mean that your body's not in the presence of a tiger, right? Like, so a lot of it does. So we could go back to head, heart, gut. Like, so when we're looking at the gut or the body or the nervous system, it's looking at what did your physical body need to do in the moment of that stressor, but it never had the opportunity to do it. Your being is looking for completion. Trauma is a intelligent defense system that comes up inside of you that becomes activated. People don't release it, but it just becomes deactivated, right? It's a defense system that's helping you. And how it gets deactivated is by you completing whatever you needed to do in that moment, but never had the opportunity to do. So maybe it was like running as fast as you could. Maybe it was like punching something. Maybe it was like shaking. Maybe it was whatever the physical body needed to do in that moment of a stressor, but it never had the opportunity to do it. And this is, we could get into breath work, because breath work actually really, the way that I utilize it is to help create a space for your being and your organism to complete whatever it needed to do. And so on an emotional level too, a lot of the times the release of the emotion or the discharge is the signal to your nervous system that the threat has been solved, that you're not in the presence of a stressor anymore. So you could work through it all through your mind, but your heart and your gut or your body or your soma still thinks that it's in the presence of a tiger because it's never completed the thing that it needed to do in the moment.
You got to complete that loop, baby.
Got to complete the loop. So, and your mind doesn't necessarily have to know, like, I don't need to think back in the moment, like, what is the thing that I needed to do? A lot of the times we can create a space, and this is why I love breath work. It's so powerful, and I never thought I was going to be like a breath work teacher. But what you're doing, and a lot of people don't realize this, is in a safe container, if you have a practitioner facilitator that's well trained, we can create a space for you to mimic a stress response. Like when someone's breathing heavily, like if I was being chased by a tiger, how would I be breathing? So we can kind of titrate you and take you into that and mimic the stress response. You're mimicking a state of trauma in your body. In your mind, you know you're safe. And so that's why a lot of the times people's emotions start to come up and the physical body starts to do all these crazy movements, because we're mimicking the state of what they and the thing that they needed to do in the moment, that their body knows what it needs to do. It just needs to feel safe enough to do that.
Somatic release, baby. So if people want to go and get their license, because I had a friend who said to me, by the way, when I was here in Austin, one of my good friends, he was like, dude, there's the best breathwork facilitator training here. And I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, but it was like started yesterday. And I was like, shit. I would have gone, right? And he's like, and like these guys are just like fantastic. Like you have to meet them. And then it was funny that I met you.
Yeah, I met you at Honor.
It was Eric. And then I was talking to Eric, and then he was like, yo, have you seen these guys' logo? And he said, mention, because we're talking about logos. And I was like, oh, that's my buddy Jagger. And he was like,
yeah,
I know that guy. He was like, that's the breathwork people. I was like, what? Where can they go to find you? Where can they go to get involved in any of your trainings or meet some of your coaches or anything like that?
Yeah, I appreciate you. If you're looking to just get a session, we have breathworknearme.com. We have practitioner in over like 40 different countries that do sessions in a multitude of different languages. Somaticbreathwork.com. You can check out all our practitioner trainings. We're fully accredited by Arizona State University. So if you're a therapist or you need actual like credits for continuing education, we got you on that. You can find us basically social media, Somatic Breathwork, everywhere. YouTube. I got a podcast as well, MindBody Mentor. As you can tell, I love nerding out on this stuff. So
it's the best, bro. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey. It was a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Absolutely.
Let's go.